made a special broadcast for children. This is an urgent broadcast now to the general YouTube stream. Uh, hey, the reason we need to nationalize the wealth of the top 1% and redistribute it to the poor people in life. I was on my last live stream. I was addressing the young people, and I told them the only way that we're going to save humanity is if the rich people pay the poor people for the privilege of having poor people. That's the service. I explained in a nutshell, the poor people have paid too much to the rich people. Now it's time for the ebb and now the flow, and that means the rich people pay the poor people. What we need to do is we need to use the federal government in order to seize the wealth of the 1% and redistribute it to the bottom half of the people, or use the money for infrastructure projects. I'm not that smart, so I wouldn't think about it, but I do know a few things. So, um, today's broadcast, what we're going to do is we're going to watch Osmond Gold TV. I like this guy. I think he picks his nose on the camera and eats his boogers, but he's pretty smart in the other way. When he talks about dumb people, he's smart. He's definitely smart. And when he talks about dumb people, I might be the dumb people. Might be right there. Anyways, guys, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. This is Monty Royal. We're going to be doing a watch along, and I'll stop and give my own commentary. All right, let's see. Here we go. This is Osmond Gold. System is rigged against Gen Z's and millennials. I want to see it.
System is rigged, so if you got $1 million, great. If you got 5 million, 10 million, even better.
That's pretty good.
Life
Yeah,
gets easier.
I would agree. If you have $10 million, life is better than if you don't. That's true. Yep.
It's the way our tax system's set up.
Yeah, we have a very progressive tax system until you get to about the 99th percent. And essentially the people who get most damaged by our current tax code, it's
Middle class.
lower and middle income households,
Yep.
Their taxes have gone up slightly because of consumption, but not because of federal. The people that really get hurt are what I call the workhorses. And that are people who make an exceptionally good living,
You're right.
but it's all current income. And they live in a blue state. They might be paying 50 to 54% tax rate. I bet some of those people are around this table right now.
And I think also a lot of those people that are paying that high tax rate, they don't have the money to pay an accounting service to offset it. Like, for example, I'll just say this. I usually have to pay multiple thousands of dollars to have my taxes done. That's because my taxes are probably as thick as one of the books in Lord of the Rings. It's a lot. And so if you have a person do that, it's going to cost a lot of fucking money. And it's not worth it for them. And it's not cost effective. And so they just end up paying more money because they can't get better service because the tax code is so hard to approach from like a, like an average person's perspective.
Yeah, that's, the tax code is way too complicated. It's way too complicated, and the effort in order to pay taxes is just way too much effort. We're spending way too much time figuring out these political hoops to jump through. That's an issue too. We're spending too much time and money figuring out how to jump through their hoops when there are certain people, like, where people know where the information is, and it should be incumbent upon the government to make these systems so easy to use, absolutely easy, no-brainer kind of stuff. And it's become so complicated and bureaucratic that most people, if you don't have a law degree, you can't really, or if you can't hire a lawyer, it's hard to navigate. That's a crime. The federal government should be criminally liable for making the government systems complex.
If you can make the jump to light speed and invest in assets, stocks, housing, then your tax rate plummets. Mm-hmm. So in America, we've decided to try and create a super class of billionaires, and then if they win,
I think that's what happens. Is a lot of people do have like I hear about this all the time. These like landlord guys that have like 100 houses or like 50 properties, and these people are just farming money. They're just farming fucking money. It's crazy.
Metal, we're going to give them the silver and the bronze. Two biggest tax deductions: capital gains and mortgage interest. Who owns homes and stocks? People my age. Who doesn't know? Who rents and makes some money from current income? young people. So we've decided that the wealthiest people in the world should get exceptionally more wealthy. Minimum.
That's bullshit. That's why I say we nationalize the 1% shit and give it and redistribute it. I don't care what y'all think. The only reason y'all think that's a wrong idea is because of y'all are brainwashed with psychological warfare. Your parents have been abused by the jobs that they had. They've been abused to think in certain ways from the military industrial complex. If the dollar isn't coming out of the federal government's tit, then you ain't getting fed. And if you ain't towing the line for the federal government, you ain't getting fed either. And I think that's bullshit. Monty Royal says nationalize the 1%, put Congress on trial, and then force the rich people to pay the poor people.
Wage stuck at 9.25. Stock market is screamed
It's
up.
7.25 here in Texas.
Average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. We are purposely transferring more wealth from the poor and middle class to the upper class to the super rich, and from young to old.
That's bullshit too. That's wrong. What's going on? Hey, what's going on? My name's Monty Royal, Snowman. Thanks for tuning in. My day's going great. I'm just saying we need to have an economic upheaval. We need to make the rich people pay the poor people now. This is Monty Royal with a special broadcast, and I'm saying it's time for the rich people to pay the poor people. The poor people have paid the rich people too long. Like, comment, subscribe, guys. Spread this message. I'm the only one who's going to be talking to you like this. No one else has the balls to bring you this message. I'm saying Donald Trump needs to step aside, sit his fat ass down, and we need to nationalize the 1% stuff to redistribute it to the poor people. The poor people are sick of being poor. It's time for the poor people to be paid by the rich people. And if that doesn't happen, we need to raise hell, folks.
And you say in the book, which is true and alarming, but let's say a 30-year-old American in America right now is doing no better than his or her parents. Then that's a new thing in American history that
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
you
Yeah.
would think over time, we want to do better than the next generation, than the last generation. It's not happening anymore.
I think it all ties into what we're talking about on campuses. For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. That is the social compact breaking down. People aged 30 to 34, 60% of them in 1990 had
Well, that's me.
Me
one
too,
child.
bud.
Now it's 27%.
Like, comment, subscribe. Monty
People's
Royal
op-
here, guys. I'm saying we need to make the rich people pay the poor people now. Guys, hit that like button. The only reason no one's telling you we need to nationalize the rich people's shit is because psychological warfare. Your parents have been abused by the federal government. The military industrial complex has beat it into these people's heads. There's only one game in town, and that's the federal government. If you're not towing the line for the federal government, you ain't getting paid. That's bullshit. That's criminal, and we should make these suckers pay for it. Time for the rich people to pay the poor people, and that means nationalizing their wealth. My name's Monty Royal. We need to nationalize the rich people's wealth and redistribute it to the poor people. Government and yeah, absolutely, Snowman. That's pretty much the philosophy is if you take the wealth and redistribute it, it will go back into the same people's hands. It will all consolidate, and that's true. I'm pretty sure that's true. And if that's the case, that means we need to redistribute it once it does happen. So we need to make our federal government, and I would put me in there, and I'll force these motherfuckers to redistribute the wealth back to the poor people. I'll nationalize the rich people 1% shit. I don't care. I'll be the front man for it. If no one else has the balls to do it, I'll do it. Monty Royal. My name's Garrett Mead. I'm in Toledo, and I'm saying if y'all don't have the balls to say it, I will, because y'all are psychologically fucked. If y'all don't see what's coming down the pike, if y'all aren't getting pissed about this means you fucking deserve all this shit comes to you. I'm going to look back and I'm going to know I said, fuck y'all, it's time to nationalize shit, and no one else got mad. And if it doesn't fall on your shoulders, and if it doesn't wake your asses up and start a fucking fire under your balls, that's your problem, motherfuckers. Y'all bitches. Yep, Snowman, y'all need to fucking spread this message. I'm getting pissed, man. But I know I'm going to look back at this and I'm going to know I tried. If you're sick of being poor, and if you're sick of your family being poor, and if you're sick of the violence and the drug abuse in your community, it's because the rich people have too much money and it's time for the poor people to get paid back.
60 to 27? Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking like about my friends. I would say out of my friends, it's like 60% do have kids. But like if I add in all my friends that are streamers, it would go down to probably about 40%. Yeah. Maybe 30 to 40%. That's not about money though. Why?
Kids are all about money. Kids are absolutely about money. The human condition is to make kids. It's just when you're not allowed to make money off of the earth, and if you're not allowed to make a house out of a berm or, the side of a mountain, to get started, that means that you don't have security unless you have dollars. So if you don't have dollars, that means you ain't getting any pussy and procreating. The humans want to procreate. Humans' job is to procreate. And so the only reason people aren't having sex and having kids is because money. And the reason women don't want to pay attention to most guys and they want to be on birth control is because they don't want to have the financial burden of kids. And that's the unfortunate thing about society is we're forced to have kids. So it's time for the rich people to pay the poor people. Monty Royal, guys, we need to do something. We need to if you guys don't want to let your political leaders know that, it's time to nationalize some shit, I'm letting my people know it's time to nationalize the 1% shit and redistribute the wealth to everyone else. Time for the poor people to be paid by the rich people. The rich people have the privilege of having poor people, so they must pay for it now. That is the service we provide to rich people, is being poor. If you honestly need to think that you need to do some shit to earn money, think of it like that. The poor people are earning the rich people's money by being poor. That's the service we're providing. Think about it like that. It's time for the federal government to wake up and nationalize. Trump is nothing more than a Zionist. Trump, his kids are all married to Jewish people, and the Jewish, I don't know what the fuck's going on with these Jewish people, and what's going on with Israel and Zionism, but I don't want it. I'm a U.S. citizen. I don't give a fuck about Israel. You can go suck a fucking toe. The Jews and Zionism suck ass. We're not paying for it anymore. It's not coming out of the national government. It's not coming out of the citizens' pockets anymore. The United States will not pay for Israel. What we will do is we will nationalize all the 1% shit and then redistribute it to our citizens with new infrastructure. We'll make sure everyone has the best internet. We'll make sure the foods are the finest. Yeah, and we'll even use it for research and development to make sure that we have efficient cars that everyone can afford, and the safety of our community is at the best and highest standard. That's what I would fight for as well. It's time for the people to pay the poor people. It's time for the rich people to pay the poor people. It's time to nationalize the rich people's shit. The 1% must pay, or we will all suffer together. We will not have kids. We will not have security unless we get paid from the rich people. The poor people are providing the service of being poor to the rich. Think about it like that. If the reason your parents aren't saying this, the reason no one's saying this, is because of psychological warfare. Parents were not paid unless they towed the line of the federal government. If they had thoughts that were different, then they didn't get assimilated. All right? I'm saying it's time to nationalize the 1% shit and redistribute it to the poor people. Time for the rich people to pay the poor people. The poor people have paid too much to the rich people. Like, comment, subscribe. Yeah, banning TikTok. I don't know what's up with that. I don't use TikTok personally. But yeah, hey, I just said, I know I'm going to have confidence to know that I said it's time to nationalize the rich people's shit. That means it's time to steal the rich people's shit and give it back to the poor people. I'm saying it. Monty Royal. My name's Garrett Mead. I'm in Toledo, Ohio, and I'm not fucking scared to say it. Unlike y'all motherfuckers who are wimps. Light a fire under your balls. We need to start setting some shit up and yeah, that's right. Fucking two of y'all drumped off because y'all pussies. Because no one else is thinking this way. Fucking most people in this country are cowards because they've been beaten down. Their relatives have been murdered off in the past because they didn't have the right philosophy, the right political theories. Well, I'm bringing it back. I don't care if I'm going to be attacked. Actually, I hope if someone kills me, it's probably better than living in this shit. That's all I'm saying. We are done for. It's been done, dude. It's been done for the past 100 years. And that's what, yeah, since the beginning, pretty much after in the 1800s, like the American dream died in like the early 1800s. That's what they're not telling you. The country died at the Civil War. When the country had a civil war, the United States was done. What we have now is an inorganic constitution government. It's a fraud. It's a counterfeit. The United States had a civil war, and that means we broke apart and we killed each other. My last name is Meade. I'm related to the General Meade who fought in Gettysburg as the bloodiest Civil War battle. That is going to be the case if we don't nationalize the rich people's shit again. If we don't take the rich people's shit and work together, we're going to end up killing each other for their benefit. So what we need to do is we need to nationalize the 1%'s wealth and redistribute it in the form of infrastructure and the form of tax. We need to make the government streamlined so that people can participate. Income taxes should not be complicated. Paying taxes, that's a noble duty, but it should not be complicated. You shouldn't have to pay an attorney unless you're a corporation and making crazy money, but you shouldn't have to pay an attorney just to do your private taxes and not have to pay 50% income tax. Yeah, now I'm not really sure how to answer that one, but all right, let's get back to the show.
I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
Out of America, they're not optimistic about it. They're not having kids. Young people aren't having sex. They're not meeting. They're not mating. The pool of emotionally and economically viable men shrinks every day.
It is, yeah. Guys don't have any fucking money. They can't get a girlfriend. And this is why you're going to, and I don't really think that there's going to be a way to solve this, by the way. I think that the way you solve this is just creating AI girlfriends.
Well, there's that. No, that's bullshit. He doesn't want to say the real way to solve it. There's a lot more than just fucking AI girlfriends. This guy's just a kind of a pussy little pansy boy that has 1 million views and he doesn't want to offend anyone. So, I like what he says, but I think he's a pansy because, yeah. Yeah, AI girlfriend's complete bullshit. I think this guy's such a little pansy because he doesn't want to, he's making his low revenue. He doesn't want to ruffle any feathers. I like what he has to say, but, when it comes down to the most critical points, he failed. He's going to fail. And that's what you can expect because he's a psychologically manipulated little shit whose family is, they're doctors and master's degrees. They've been whipped into shape on how to think. They've been so tortured guys like him, been tortured over time for so long, and how to think that they're able to contort themselves and contort their minds into some weird little nutshell that the government made. Because if you don't agree with the federal government, then you ain't getting paid. There's only one place in town the money's coming from, and that's the federal government. And if you ain't towing their line, they're not doing business with you. That means you don't get dollars. All right? So if you don't toe the federal line, you get cut off. This guy, on the other hand, his family's been sucking that federal tit, and they've been fucking kowtowing to these suckers for so long. I like what he has to say, but when it comes down to the serious shit, the critical stuff, he's saying AI girlfriends are the only answer. What a fucker, dude.
I don't think that, there's going to be a way that this gets fixed and things go back to the way they were in 1993. It's just not going to happen. The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I hear you, bud. He also picks his nose and eats his boogers on camera.
I think that also, a lot of times, guys...
once people start making some motion, and I think you'd be surprised on how quick society snaps back in line once, nature takes its course, all right? Violence is nature. Nature is violence. Violence is an educator. Once you throw a little violence in the equation, shit straightens up pretty quick. So if you want an AI girlfriend, you little pansies, go for it. Guys like me, I can look back at it. I mean, it'd be a death mission. I need guys to come with me. You know what I mean? That's the point. I'm thinking he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. As soon as you go up and you fucking throw some violence in these motherfuckers' face, women will fucking be like, oh, yeah, it's time to fuck. Because nature. Men equals violence. Violence equals fucking. Fucking equals nature.
Guys have, I think there's also a lot of girls probably would not pursue relationships as early as they do.
This is the most unviolent motherfucker too, and he's kowtowing the YouTube system and all the hands that are feeding him, all the revenue shit that he's got going on. Yeah, he's not going to say anything like Monty Royal's going to say.
The culture did not reward that, right? Or like, I guess a better way for me to say it is the culture did not actively punish that.
The culture will reward violence.
Because now that women have like more opportunities to like have careers, a lot of them are choosing to have careers. And so in the past, that literally wasn't that much of an option. So like it makes sense.
Lessens household formation. So we have a real issue. Young people are enraged. So it turns every cut, every movement into an opportunistic infection because, quite frankly, they are just pissed off. They look.
What would need to be done to reverse this?
Nationalizing the 1%'s wealth. Yeah, that's the only way it's going to happen because they're not going to do it unless someone forces them to do it.
What needs to be done, and this is what is going to happen, and it's just a matter of like when, is that they need to have like a universal income. Because what's going to happen is that the reason why a lot of young...
All right, dude, the universal income is the same thing as a minimum wage, all right? Universal basic income, all it's going to do is just make the... So now we have $0. If you get a UBI, it's going to be practically $0 as well. It just means everything's going to inflate. Because the point is, corporations who are owned by the shareholders, they watch the real rate of change in their wealth. So they make sure that to change their prices accordingly. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Well, guys that have joined the military, they've been victims of psychological warfare. 99% of our culture, anyone in our society who has any money, they are victims of psychological warfare. And like I said, the dollars flow out of the federal government. And if you're not towing the federal government's line, they won't share dollars with you. So that's wrong. The federal government is obviously wrong. And look where we're at now. It's a concentration of wealth. We have, I was watching this guy and he's talking about technology. And yeah, technology's at a point where it's just fine. It's like we have plenty of technology that's enough. It's like the quality of videos is just fine. It's like the technology isn't what we need to invest in. We need to invest in the actual people now. And federal government's not going to do that unless we force them to do it. So and then the federal government, what it does is it makes policy in order to make the rich people pretty much pay up the poor people. And that means is nationalizing. That means we're going to have to take Elon Musk's shit and nationalize it. The shareholders are going to get burnt, but, that's just the way it is. I'm sorry, guys, but it's time for the rich people to pay the poor people. And that means that the nationalization of the wealth, we need to practically... The people that are going to get wrecked are the boomers and the Xers and the people that are invested now. My opinion is for you not to get invested too deep, because the only way to fix this is if we redistribute the wealth. So if you go ahead and get invested in it, and then the wealth has to be redistributed. It's time for the poor people to be paid by the rich people. I made a broadcast from the children earlier today, and you have to educate the kids now, because unless you want a different world, we got to start spouting off we got to start making some different motions, because right now just towing the line and kowtowing to the federal government is going to leave us all fucking butthurt, and we're all going to just be frustrated, and if you don't realize it now, you'll realize it after 65. If you make it to retirement, you'll be like, God damn, I wasted a lot of time and energy into that shit, and you didn't get as much back. And so I'm saying I want to be free. I don't want to be bound by stupid fucking jobs that I can't perform at. You know what I mean? So we have Social Security now, but I mean, I can do jobs, but yeah, this is kind of my job right now. I'm in between there's no real jobs, man. There's no real jobs. I'm sick of fucking serving people at the lowest rank. You know what I mean? It's like fucking, yeah, get your own groceries and shit. I would need a job, but for the meantime, until I get a fucking job, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be telling y'all We need to redistribute the wealth from the rich people to the poor people. Time for the poor people to pay the rich people, because it's better to live fucking to be dead than to have to keep on getting a boot on your neck. All right.
People have economic problems is because the jobs that young people have to build up skills are not available anymore. Like a lot of those jobs are just simply removed. Like you can't, there's not as many people getting getting hired at Walmart or getting hired at Target or your local grocery store like H-E-B here. Not to mention like fast food restaurants. And you see a lot of jobs that are kind of like that low education, like not necessarily like zero education, but like just general low education jobs are just simply being automated. And as those jobs get automated, there will be people that fix and work on those robots, but that level of education is much higher than the job that the robots were designed to solve. So the problem is that if you're a guy and you're looking to get a job and you are 24, let's say, and you don't have a STEM degree or something like that, and you don't want to work in a trade, you don't really have a lot of options. It's hard to do. Yeah, tech is also fucked. It's barely started recovering. Yeah, and that's what happened.
And that comes back in the whole thing. It's like jobs. You got to get a job. It's like, what about just having a plot of land and like growing your own stuff? And, you know, it's like, yeah, and if I can't grow my own shit, then it's like, yeah, let me die or kill me, or, you know, maybe let a church deal with the charity. That's another thing, too. The federal government needs to get out of charity work. Let the churches focus on charity. Let the Vatican has way too much money not to focus on charity. The Vatican needs to step up. Pope Francis, you guys need more. You guys need to do better, because y'all are putting the pressure on the federal governments of the communities, and y'all know you guys have a lot of wealth wrapped up and a lot of power into the whole thing. So the Catholic Church, the Vatican, the Pope, he's talking about he's getting on debt. He's talking about debt jubilees now. They need to do a debt jubilee. That's what needs to happen at the least, is forgiving the debt is the first. But that's not good enough. It's not good enough just forgiving the debt. The issue is the process. The process is the issue of what we got going on. So it's the concentration of wealth. We need to redistribute the wealth. It's concentrated into far too few hands, and it's not effective. The wealth needs to go back to the people. It needs to be in the form of infrastructure, health. We need to straighten up all this stuff. It's all wrapped up. The insurance companies are raising up the prices on medicine. And so Bill Gates is talking about death panels, and pretty much when's it get to the point where grandma becomes too expensive to keep alive by the day? When's it worth taking out grandma? Pretty much. Like how much, so when does it get to the point where grandma's bills, yeah, when does it get to the point when grandma's bills keeps it too expensive to keep her alive, you know? And so the point is that the insurance companies, they've messed up. This whole healthcare thing is just wrecked, man. Our whole society's wrecked by technology. It's just gotten way worse. So yeah, if you guys want anything different, all we can do, you guys are looking for a high level answer, you know, it's just like calling out to God, asking him for help. He's not going to help. God isn't going to help us. There is no divine intervention. It's just us, guys. And if you're not willing to make the action, I'm willing to get on the camera and talk about it. I just need people to spread the word now. You know, if no one else is going to have the courage or confidence to speak this, then, you know, we do it to ourselves. So the least I could do is make this broadcast. I can't go out on the side of the road and just start screaming. That's stupid, you know, but I can do this. This is a great way, and so it becomes incumbent upon all of you to share my message as well. This is Monty Royal. Like, comment, subscribe.
Happens. And so, and there will be guys that end up coming out ahead, right? This always happens. Like there are guys now that are 25 that are making $200,000 a year because they are really high performers at their job, or for whatever other reason. Maybe their dad owns the company. But there are guys that actually even reach that on their own without any sort of like weird, crazy thing. But it's a very, very low probability. And so the probability of that happening is just extremely fucking low. And also, like, the guys that are doing that are 1% guys. Like, these are guys that are smarter than probably like 95 or 99% of everybody else. So, and like, I'm not the kind of person, like, I don't think that intelligence is, I think it's changeable to a degree, but it's not completely changeable. I've played WoW long enough to know that there are some people that you will just never really be able to teach them to get out of the fire. Like you can teach them how to get out of this fire, but they will go to the next fight and then they'll stand in the next fire. And they're just stupid, right? That's it. And you can make them a little bit less stupid, but they're still going to be less stupid.
All right, this guy's philosophy on intelligence, you know, he's probably right. I'm probably not the smartest guy, but what I can say is that we're all biological systems, and logically, every cell in the human body has a function, and so does every human. Humans are like biology. We're part of a body. We should have a place to go and things to do, and it should come fairly naturally. So I personally think it's like, yeah, intelligent is a big deal, but I think also is a type of intelligence that we aren't even really accustomed to, and it's a biological intelligence. Like certain cells in our body know exactly where to go, you know what I mean? And they rely on the whole other system to kind of get them there. And so the body is a beautiful construct. The way that it can balance and be in homeostasis and be in harmony, that is the process that our government should also mimic. The Greeks had it best. We should take this, the best way we can improve our society is to take nature, exploit nature's gifts, and then try to recreate them the same way that nature does. And so that's what a constitution is. A constitution is supposed to be how the body of government works. It's supposed to be how the synapse and the cells all in the kidney and the bladder and the liver all work together in order to make the body stay in homeostasis. That means at a steady level. Our government should mimic that. Right now, what we have is we have a society of, people with not good qualities of life. A lot of people's quality of life is suffering. And the only way we're going to help it out is to take the money from the richest people and redistribute it to the poorest people. That's the only way we're going to get it better. And we have the power in the numbers. It's just like, there's so few rich people compared to poor people. There's just so many poor people with the numbers that, it's just like, man, it's just, there's way more of us than there are them. You got to remember that.
And that's the problem. And so in the past, these people had jobs that were, relatively low education, low thinking jobs. But now that doesn't happen. And more jobs are requiring critical thinking. And whenever you have critical thinking being a requirement, well, that's a problem because a lot of people can't do that. I think you can still achieve that without being smarter than 99%. Okay. If you can achieve that without being smarter than 99%, then you probably have something else that puts you in the 1%. And you probably have a confluence of things that put you in the 1%. You could be very attractive. You could come from a richer area. You could be very good at communicating, for example. Like, just because you're not in the 1% of intelligence does not mean that you're not in the 1% of 3 other things as well. Do you see what I'm saying? Born to the right parents. Yeah, like, for example, like for me, both my parents were master's degree college graduates. My dad did work on a PhD. He left, became a professor in college.
They've been drinking the Kool-Aid for a long time.
He retired, worked at the IRS. My mom was a writer, and she did that for many, many years, and professionally. And so, like, guess what? Growing up, I had a massive advantage over people who, let's say you're a, you're like first generation Mexican, right? Like your parents came from Mexico. They don't really speak English very well. I have an automatic advantage over that person because I grew up in a house where my parents talked to me a lot in English and I learned how to speak in a proper way. That's just the truth. And it's not something that has to do with like the color of my skin. Like, there's black people that had the same advantage that I did in that circumstance. But the truth is that that is still a massive fucking advantage. And there's all kinds of little advantages like that. Like, for example, being tall is a huge fucking advantage. Being attractive is an insane fucking advantage. There's even a term for it. It's called the halo effect. So you have all, and also like health as well. Like, I've noticed that, like, for example, whenever I was younger, for me, I've always been very, I know you might not believe this, but I used to always be very athletic. And it was always amazing for me to see people that would drop out whenever we would like run a mile and they couldn't even do one lap. It's like, what the fuck? Are you kidding?
All right, yeah, I think that's pretty stupid of him to say. It's like, as intelligent as he is, he doesn't realize it's like, yeah, people are just biologically different. Like, it's like, yeah, you get just like the skit, it's like, you tell there's a few animals lined up and it's like, hey, get the apple out of the tree. There's a monkey, there's an ox, and then there's like a turtle, and then there's like a mouse or something. And they're like, only the monkey's really equipped for that stuff. I don't think people are really, running and stuff. I don't think everyone needs to be if you look at the old, the Mesopotamians and stuff, they have those little statues of the very voluptuous women, and I highly doubt they could run a mile. Maybe they could, but the point is, like I said earlier, everyone serves different biological functions. Like in a human body, there's different cells. All of us have different functions. We're not, not all of us have to be like I encourage exercise, but the society doesn't need everyone to be able to run a fucking mile. You know what I mean?
Kidding me? No, it's cap. No, it's not. Yeah, it's extremely common. So I think what happens, I kind of
it's not an endurance test.
That's the point that I'm making, is that basically, in order to be a winner, like, let's say in the past you had to be in the top 80%. Now you have to be in the top 30%, or 20%, or 40%. So whenever that many people are getting left out and they're losers, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, and in the game of life, there are lots of losers and winners. There's lots of losers and a few winners, all right? So, it's just, one of those things you got to get more comfortable with as you grow up. I'm saying, though, we take this time and we seize the wealth of the 1% and redistribute it to the poor people. That's the only way we can make this thing work. So, I'm saying it. I'm advocating it. I would love to get a group of people with pitchforks and, stick flaming torches, and we can go pretty much, January 6th Congress or something. The young people need to do something, because Trump's saying, he's pardoning all these January 6th dudes. So, hell, that means we're allowed to go raise hell, and we should be raising hell, Unfortunately, I don't know if violence is going to occur, but, what I do know is that the people need to get the 1% to redistribute the wealth. We need to pretty much, and that means by court order. It would all be done legally. The federal government can mandate that this wealth would be transferred there, so there would be no law violated. It would be, good law. There's plenty of cases of nationalization of corporations and assets, and so it's time for the United States to nationalize the assets of some of these multinational corporations and banks, and maybe even some of these cryptocurrencies too.
See wealth, exceptional wealth across my generation and people in certain industries, and they are really struggling. Their purchasing power is going down, and the incumbents create artificial scarcity on campus. We take pride in rejecting 90% of our applicants. So the incumbents who already have a degree see their degree go up in value. We get very concerned with housing and traffic once we own the housing. Housing permits are sequestered from young people. Housing prices have gone from $290 to $420 in the last 4 years. So a young person,
$290 to $420. Oh wow, that's a lot.
A house, stocks that I don't own skyrocket in value. Let's have COVID relief and flush the markets and take assets way up, because if 1 million people dying would be bad, it would be tragic if I got less wealthy. And we're doing it on their credit card. Young people have every reason to be enraged, and every issue they see, they look.
This guy's literally telling you guys, if we don't do anything about it, we're just going to get steamrolled by these old fuckers. These old shitheads are literally going to steal all of our shit. I'm a millennial. The millennials in 2008 were called the lost generation because the productivity that was swindled, the money that was stolen out of the economy, was pretty much intended for our use and our benefit. Unfortunately, the money that was taken was so pretty much there's no investment. So back in 2008, 2009, they're calling millennials the lost generation. They will not talk about that anymore. If you look it up, you can find information on it. But they were saying we're a lost generation because the money that they lost in the economy, because due to fraud and all kinds of other BS, that money was intended to be invested in us and that we were able to use. That's why our system's messed up right now, is because, yeah, there's the money that was supposed to be there for us isn't. It's supposed to be money that's floating around in the economy. It's supposed to be there invested in businesses and stuff and infrastructure. All that stuff got cut out and put into people's pockets, few people's personal banks.
Up, they get angry and they see someone doing better than them, and then every day it is speedballed in their face.
It's not going to stop either. It's going to keep getting worse every single year. And the reason why it's going to keep getting worse is because people are trained to hate each other rather than hate the people that put them in the situation that they're in. People that are being taken advantage of and fucked over, I'll be honest, they're stupid. That's why they can't get a job and they can't compete at that high level. So guess what? All of those people, it's really easy to hoodwink them into thinking that the real problem is incels, or the real problem is feminism, or something like that. Because it's an easier, the thing is that, identity politics, that's the real reason why you're a failure in life is because of identity politics. Well, that's a really easy sell to somebody with an IQ of 91.
That they are failing, that they are not doing as well as everyone around them. We have lost the script. Our kids are more anxious and more depressed and more obese and more addicted, and we have made a purposeful decision to let this happen.
This is the part that I saw.
By ensuring the people around this table stay wealthy at the cost of young people.
So Scott, what the social element of that's the economic element, the social elements that you mentioned, the happiness, the anxiety, all of those things, that kids aren't getting together anymore, that they're not having kids. What happened in one generation? Social media has to play a role in it, I'm sure, but what else do you see that has created this climate for this generation?
Okay.
I think you have the most talented, well-resourced people in the world and companies trying to convince a young man that he can have a reasonable facsimile of life in his basement behind a screen. You don't need friends. Go on Reddit or Discord. You don't need to get...
Was he talking about me? Wait, what? What's this shit? Who the fuck?
A job, go on Robinhood or Coinbase and trade crypto and stocks. You don't need to go through the rejection.
Yeah, that's another thing, is that I think that this is definitely true, and I know this is true for myself. As I said, I don't like revealing my power level for kind of a little bit how crazy I am. But I used to dig my fingernails into my skin and tear my skin out as just a reminder to myself that I could do whatever I wanted.
No, that's called self-mutilation. And people self-mutilate because they're angry. Let's see. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, so people self-mutilate because they're angry.
That's right. I have scars on my back from it.
It's because they're powerless, and that is the effect of the psychological warfare, probably, too, of our society.
Yep.
And guys, like, comment, subscribe. Monty Royal here, and I'm saying it's time for the federal government to nationalize the 1%'s wealth and redistribute it to the poor. If you're sick of being poor, and if you're sick of your community being poor, and if you're sick of the violence and drugs in your community, it's time to take the 1%'s money and redistribute it to everyone else. No one else is going to tell you that because they're fucking pussies.
I did it on my arms too, but all that's pretty much healed out. And so, yeah. And so I'm a bit of a weirdo, but the truth is that a lot of people, they feel like they don't have any real autonomy. They can't control themselves. And I think that for me, there were a lot of cases in my life where I think that, for example, like I got a lot stronger dealing with something that was like extremely, like really, really bad. Like, for example, like whenever all my teeth started falling out, I was such a bitch before that. I was. I was a total bitch. And like after that happened to me, that really, like, it fucked me up a lot, but I was a lot more fucking resilient.
I'll tell you, I got a tooth pulled, and literally, it feels like a part of your soul is taken from your body when you lose a tooth. There's a spiritual meaning to it. There's a real deep connection in teeth and the body, and so yeah, I bet. Damn, I can imagine. I can't imagine losing all my teeth. I lost one of my teeth, and it was terrible. It was a traumatic experience having it ripped out of your body, being poisoned by your own tooth for years. There are people out there in our society, there are some of your family members, your friends, that are being poisoned right now by their teeth. Your teeth poisoning can lead to premature lung and heart damage. That's how important dental care is in our economy, yet it is the least funded as well. Because the infection goes straight to your heart. It hits your bloodstream and goes right to your heart and brain. So the teeth are super important. When you lose, I lost one tooth, and it was actually as traumatic. It like changed my whole life. I felt like after getting a tooth pulled, I felt like my life was completely different. I was willing. Yeah, it showed me my own mortality. Really, I got a kidney removed, but when I lost a tooth, that thing really opened my eyes to the mortality of humans, and I felt like my life was slipping away. I could feel it slipping away as the tooth was. Like the first few days after getting the tooth removed, it felt like I was almost on the verge of like I could just will myself to death. I felt like so teeth are a very critical element, and that's also another thing. If we redistribute the wealth of the top 1%, yeah, we can make sure everyone's got good teeth. We'd take the shit out of all the food. And yeah, we'd have to do something about the food, clean it up. Everyone's going to have to grow their own food. Victory gardens. Everyone's going to have a community garden. There's no other way around it. This whole Cargill bullshit, feeding everyone. Cargill, I think Cargill is the largest private employer in the United States, and they practically make sure that they do all the fast foods, they do all the dog foods, they do all the foods. And it's a private family. They're all based out of Montana. There's like 16 billionaires just in the family. It's a United States company. It's called Cargill. They have their hands so deep in farming that they're just raising us. It's families like that need to be their company needs to be nationalized. Yeah, that would make sense that farming should be nationalized. When it comes to food production and stuff, so we should take over that, and yeah. Anyways, so you're going to hear the dope from me and no one else, because everyone else is psychologically fucked and they're too scared to go without money. But I don't mind if I even get killed for this, but we need to nationalize the 1%'s wealth and redistribute it between the poor people. I made a special broadcast for children earlier, and I was saying that the poor people paid enough to the rich people, and now it's time for the rich people to pay the poor people for the benefit of having poor people. So, and if your parents aren't making over $1 million a year, I'm not talking to you, dude. You know what I mean? It's the 1%. So I'm talking like investors and those groups like that, large groups like that. So yeah, unfortunately, some people are going to have to take haircuts too, but it's for the greater good of our whole society.
Truth pain is no joke. Yeah, exactly. And go fucking tell the truth. The profession is fun. Yeah, it's life changing. It is. And the same thing happened, like with my mom. Like after she passed away, I think about like because I'll watch videos of myself before then, and I think about like how like emotionally weak I was. I was incredibly weak, and like having to deal with that and the stress and pressure of that was just so bad that it like, and this is the thing, this is the problem, is that like it definitely changed who I was as a person in a good and a bad way. And I think that there are a lot of other instances that I've had this happen in my life too, where like now I think that I am more did you hate yourself at the time? Yeah, of course. I wanted to kill myself. Of course, yeah, sure. But I didn't do it. I was a pussy, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Aren't we all?
So yeah. And so that's what happened. And I think that a lot of guys nowadays, they don't have to go through a lot of those things in a lot of cases. Like a lot of social friction. I think that's a good example of it. And I'm using like extreme examples from my life, but there's a lot of like very, very low examples, like getting kicked out of a friend group, having people dislike you, getting turned down by a girl, something like that. And a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do that. And
oh, it hurts. It hurts. If you have a girl that breaks your heart, I'll tell you, one of the worst heart things I've had, you know, obviously I don't have a problem getting a girlfriend, right? So I've had a few heartbreaks in my time. I've broken a few hearts, but yeah, girlfriends, whew, there's nothing cuts deeper and gets you more sad about that. And losing a girlfriend, and what it is, it's especially when they break up with you, it's when the circumstances, like if I break up with a girlfriend, it's like, oh yeah, I'm good. Definitely a heart does not break even, guys. That's just like the song, when a heart breaks, it don't break even. That's the truth. So you know, when I leave my girlfriends, it's not that bad. When I'm forced to leave if my girlfriend leaves me, or there are circumstances that are too great, that are beyond both of our controls, that we're forced to be separated, dude, there's no worse heartache than that. It is, I mean, you know, there is when you lose people that you love, you know. That's devastating. I was my uncle passed away when I was young. He was a dwarf, and he passed away, and he is the guy that taught me how to use the internet. And he had a computer in his room, so he was sleeping, and I was used to going in his room and using the computer. When he was sleeping, he'd wake up, and you know, but he had the computer, and so I thought he was sleeping. My grandpa came in, tried to wake him up, and I was playing this game called You Don't Know Jack, and it's a trivia game. And that day, I made the best score on You Don't Know Jack I've ever made. It was like movie trivia, and I was into the game. I was feeling it. I was doing really good. And then all of a sudden, I heard my grandpa tell my grandma. She's like, "Hey, he's like, hey, Cecil's dead." And I was just like, "Oh shit!" And that's devastating. That brought me to my knees. When my uncle died, because my uncle was very close. I was very close to my uncle. He's into sci-fi and all kinds of cool stuff. And yeah, he taught us about the internet, and he was real active back in the early days of chat rooms and stuff. There used to be an MTV show where you could use a chat room while the show was going on, being broadcast, and so the chat room on the internet would be scrolling alongside the TV. And my uncle was a guest on that show a few times in the chat room. So he's a cool guy. He was with it. He's a cool guy. He passed away though. He was supposed to die when he was like, every year of his life, the doctors were like, "Hey, he's going to die." I had an aunt as well who's a dwarf, so dwarfism runs in my family. And because of eugenics, I was reading because pretty much breeding, the way this whole money thing, the reason we don't have money, it's a form of eugenics. It's how government controls policy. And so one way to make sure people don't have kids is to make sure that their access to money, food, and shelter is very limited, because that will pretty much limit the scope of their brains as well. So if you're able to, like, if you had free, you know, the free world to go out and pursue, your brain fills up that capacity, you know. But when there's only so much that can flow, it's a really restrictive area. Who knows what else they're doing? They're putting like all kinds of hormones in our food. I don't even know if guys' sperm count's good enough or women's eggs are even good enough to have kids nowadays. It takes like it's like they probably have it down. So if you're not exercising every day, if you're not taking the psychological meds, then you're not able to produce kids. They've got it down so that in order to have kids, you gotta be probably serving the beast somehow. You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyways.
And guess what? If you spend so much time not doing that, you're gonna be in a bad spot. Suicide's getting higher, yeah. Imagine you did. You miss out on being incredibly successful businessman, all on a cool dude. I don't really ever think about that stuff. I don't, guys. I just listen. There's a reason why I don't really talk about how I feel with a lot of things. It doesn't matter. The point is that this guy is right that being on social media and spending all the time on the internet does, I think, make people a lot weaker.
And the expense and the humiliation
mentally.
and working out and having a plan and humor and showering to get a romantic relationship, you have view porn. So we have an entire generation,
View porn.
especially of young men, who are out home sequestering from society and missing out on what it means. There's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is
Romantic comedy. That was a pretty good one.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. And I bet they did the other. I don't even know if they got that. He just said it? Yeah, bro. He said this on fucking national TV. Weird tangent? Yeah, that was perfect. Oh my God. To go out rom-coms? Yeah, it's perfect. Holy shit, that was good.
There's a reason romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. True victory in life is hard. Going out, meeting someone, finding mentors, finding mates, that stuff is hard.
Well, also, like, a lot of guys aren't going to be able to do that. There's some people that are just born losers, and they're never going to be successful in a free market because other people will beat them out because they're weak. And that's just what happens. And so you either have to reconcile that and just make sure that these people, and this is just natural selection. Yeah, that's just what happens. And I'm not being mean. I think it's just the truth. Yeah, damn, you got right to it. Yeah, well, as I said,
I don't know. I think he's towing this Kool-Aid he's been drinking because people are weak. People, there's ways that policy is used in order to, pretty much cut out people's and, processes become like the steam engine. The steam engine becomes, if your biology is a certain way, like I said, dwarfism, because of eugenics, that's a biological thing. Becoming a dwarf is just a biological function, it's just, I don't know why, I hope it's not incest, but, whatever. But, because eugenics, poor breeding, pretty much, that's what causes it. But they were also Appalachian hillbillies, and so rural communities are notorious for inbreeding as a survival mechanism. And usually those people are forced out there because of, they either are sick of society or society is sick of them. So that's why they go out there. So I'm kind of coming at you from, I got some skin in the game. Our family was, out in the middle of nowhere. And this was generations ago. But we're pretty much all inbred rednecks, and we're put there for a reason. And so either send my ass back to the farm, or I'm going to be a revolutionary.
I love saying the thing that's true in the worst possible way to make everybody think it's not true, right? And so I think did I do a good job with that? Hopefully I did. Some people are born losers. They're never going to be competitive. They're never going to win anything. It doesn't matter how hard they try. Somebody else will always outperform them. And these are people that used to work at McDonald's. These are people who used to work on an assembly line, turning the nut. There you go. Because guess what? If you put them...
Even those motherfuckers were able to have kids and a car and a house and stuff, and a little bit of dignity and a little bit of ability to beat their wives when they got a little hot and they want to be sent to jail. Come on, man.
A critical thinking situation, whoever is accountable for that is going to be having a bad time. I wouldn't call some people weak. Well, I'm not talking about mentally weak. I'm talking about physically weak. Like, they're shorter, they're smaller.
Well, yeah, that's just, they love to use the term winners and losers in our economy and our system. And, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, they're, like, when you look at processes in a certain way, there are winners and losers. That's the way you could look at it. Yeah, of course, if you call anyone a loser, it's pretty much going to have an effect on their emotional state, It's like, ugh, no one wants to be called a loser. We're just human, man. We're just human. We're clay. It's not like we're robots or anything. And there are people. I think the issue is that our society has been subjected to psychological warfare all the way back to Jesus's day, at least. Like, we've been subjected to psychological warfare by people who knew there are things called breakaway civilizations. And right now they're popular because people think that breakaway civilizations are space-faring civilizations. That means that they left the planet. No. Breakaway civilizations stay on the planet, and they farm other humans. They put other humans on a farm, just like, they put humans in a city. And the people work and they make money and pay taxes. And if they're not working, they're in the hospital getting taken care of and getting federal dollars to pay for it, to pay the doctors. And if they're not in the hospital or they're working, their asses better be in jail, And if they're not in the hospital, and if they're not working, and if they're not in jail, they're at home on the fucking dole. They're on, So either way, instead of just being on your own, you got to be part of the system.
They can't do certain things. Think about it as in terms of in any animal, in any group of animals, a lot of the animals die. In almost every single instance, a lot of them fucking die. Do you really think that that's not the case with people? It's the case with every single group of animals, but not people? Of course it is. Some people are just born losers. Some people spawn in with 60 talents, and some people spawn in with 0. And that's the way it goes.
I don't think that. I think everyone's got something they're good at. I think there's just a dislocation of, people aren't born in the right places. They're not born to the right. Like I said, there are families that grew hemp for rope and sails for generations. Our last names are given to us for what we did. So if you're unfamiliar with the last name is called a surname. And the reason a surname exists is because the kings and queens wanted to tax the people, and they have a proper level of taxation, and they wanted to, it's for accounting reasons. It's called a proper name. So the first and middle name is called the proper name, and then the family name is the last name. The last name was given to us. We didn't choose it. The king or queen, the nobility, gave us these last names so that they can categorize us. So a last name like Mead means meadow dweller, or they made mead wine. If you have the last name Goldsmith, they worked with gold. They're a smith of gold. Silversmith or Silverstein, that is a person who worked with sterling silver or silver. So your last name was your function. Your last name is what you did. So there are families out there that all they did was make rope out of hemp, and they grew hemp and they made all kinds of stuff out of it. Well, what happens when you make it? Their last name is like hemp, right? So what happens when you make hemp illegal? You pretty much kill off a whole biologies. At that point, the information has become ingrained into the DNA. And people don't realize that. That's part of science that they don't want to admit exist. And that, there's parts of science that are not being made public, but that are known to segmented categories of human and authority. But that's one thing is if you know genetic information, that stuff holds what your family used to do, because we used to have processes like my ex-girlfriend, her last name was a seamstress, what you would call a seamstress. So they were working on clothes. It's like they don't do that anymore. But maybe they, you know, maybe we should go back to doing what we kind of genetically always did. All right.
I don't think this is a problem that's possible to solve, because you can't empower a person like that. It will never work.
But that's what real victory in real life is like. And because a lot of men feel rejected on dating apps, the number of jobs that are accessible to them has gone down. You have essentially a group of men who are saying, I want a low-risk entry into life. And they go down a rabbit hole. When they don't have social connections, and they don't get out, and they don't have the prospect of a romantic
They don't have
relationship,
leaders.
They're more prone to conspiracy theory. They're more prone to misogyny.
There are no leaders. I'm a leader. I'm telling you guys, we need to nationalize their shit.
It is a conspiracy why they're fucking failures. The fucking government cooked it up. Yeah, this
It's baked in the cake. It's the policy. That's why my video I made about policy. If you haven't watched my video on policy, go back. I was talking about it 8 months ago. I'm saying the issue is the rules of the game. So the programming in the computer is making us poor. It's making it so the wealth is consolidating into one. I'm saying we need to come at it with a new angle of how, you know, the programming functions. Or, yeah, we need to add a new application, all right?
Believe in climate change, and some become really bad citizens. We are producing too many of the most dangerous person in the world, and that is a young, broke, and lonely young man.
Yeah, true.
Why is it that so
Yeah, every single
Fuck
school
'em.
shooter basically is that.
Well,
No.
I'm not going far as school shooting, but I'm saying we need to raise hell, and we need to, like, force the government. This stuff isn't going to be easy. These people that have the money, they're not going to give it up. The people who have the power, they're not going to give it up. That's why you have senators and Congress people that have been in for 30 plus years. It's not the Congress people, it's the people behind the funding of those Congress people. Donald Trump, he's being funded by all these mega corporations that have their best interest in mind. He's not looking out for the people, he's looking out for the people that are funding him. Trump was a big fan of Larry Silverstein, and Silverstein's the guy that purchased the Twin Towers before they collapsed. A week before they collapsed, Silverstein purchased them and won out big with a huge insurance payment. And Donald Trump was right there. Dude, there's so much more to this situation. Trump ain't no savior. That guy's bought and sold, and he has no he has no loyalty to the American people at all. If you're a businessman, you cannot have a solid constitution, because your constitution is based on business. Business is a changing climate. It is a static environment. It is not the same. So that means your politics have to change with business. What do you think is right? You know, there's right and there's wrong. All right? That's all there is to it. There's right and there's wrong. The Code of Hammurabi, dude, these guys knew back then that you have to forgive the debts or else the people will go crazy. If you keep people subjected to debt, they will make sure to flip out, and, you know. So these rules and this knowledge has already been figured out a long, long time ago. And it's for some reason, for the benefit of a few right now, these laws, these truths that our society has already established are being avoided, they're being denied, and they're being withheld from us. And these truths, one just being King Hammurabi said, if you do not forgive the people of their debt every 7 years, you will not have a kingdom. No one wants to be subjugated to a kingdom where they're always in debt. They'd rather leave and start over somewhere else, or they'd rather revolutionize. So, you know, that's just one element.
Oh, there's a few exceptions, but it's a big deal whenever one of them is an exception, right? Yeah, most of the time, a lot of the guys that go on shooting rampages are under 25 guys that are losers or loners.
of these young people that you're talking about seem to.
And I also don't think it's because of guns. I really don't. I think guns are a factor, but people had guns in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and shit like that wasn't happening.
It was,
Like a
but
lot
not
of
at
people brought that. Like
the
my
rate.
dad even told me, he's like, yeah, people would bring their gun to school. They'd leave their shotgun in the car. They'd drive to fucking high school and they'd leave the shotgun in the car. Not a single one of them took the shotgun in and started shooting a bunch of kids. So what's the difference? I don't even think it's drugs. I actually don't think it's drugs. I think it is, to be honest, I think some of these people are like mental cases and they should have been institutionalized. But because we can't institutionalize people anymore, they're out free. And some of them shoot up schools.
No, what it is, it's the parents. Like, it goes back to the psychological warfare. The parents are told to shut up after they're molested. Most of our parents have been molested, and they were told to stay in line, shut the hell up, keep doing what you're doing, don't cause any distractions. And, so that's why a lot of our parents are, they have these alters. Their personality is split in more than even two personas, and they don't even realize it. It's dissociative identity disorder as well. But yeah, our parents are abused physically, sexually, and that alters their personality. And so what that does is it messes up the way that they raise their kids. So when their kids having a problem, like they were taught, and why, guys, when I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, the racist songs and little poems and chants were always going around. Why do you think that's not done by accident? That's propagated by people in the military and in the police that are educating the kids to keep perpetrating this magic of racism. Racism has to be a form of magic. If you keep telling colored people that they're worthless and all this stuff, then, it's like it has to draw from their aura of life. It has to, you know what I mean? And so when I was a kid growing up, we heard that was all over the place, all kinds of racist little songs and stuff. And I'm pretty sure those racist little chants are told, are like people in positions of power are actually more racist than you think they are. And that's what I think is pretty sad as well. And, yeah.
And I think also it's the death of hope. These people have no hope for the future. They don't think that anything is ever going to get better. So they go and kill a bunch of people and then kill themselves. That's it.
To life after going to 4-year schools or 2-year schools or whatever.
Anyway, so I was saying pretty much parents don't want to get their kids the help they need because the parents are uneducated and the parents are also altered as well. They don't want to be, because as like, I can imagine your kids, you see, it's hard, depending on how your psyche is, your kids could bring out the worst traits that you try to suppress. Your kids will fly those flags, So I think, I don't have kids, but I'm kind of imagining, but yeah, you could probably see the worst qualities that you in yourself that you try to hold and help, like suppress and act like they're not there. But I think those are able to, when you see those in your kid, I think it's a lot easier to do the same thing and you try to suppress it, you act like it's not there, or you either or just ignore it. So that's, because they were taught as well as kids that when they have an issue, like someone's, doing stuff to them, they can't tell anyone, they can tell someone, but it ends there. It doesn't go any further, it's like once mom knows, once grandma knows, no one else is going to know who's doing it. You know what I mean? And so that's just, it's sexual assault is a form of power. It's a form of, intimidation, power control as well. So people will sexually assault other people to have power over them. It's part of nature, that's unknown. It's unfortunately that's just how it is. I wish it wasn't like that, but Um, so if the family can't even talk about the molestations that occur, the families definitely won't be able to talk about like policies that are affecting their lives. You know what I mean? It's like the government's molesting everyone, and everyone's being told, "Don't tell. You don't tell anyone. You tell anyone, I'll kill you." Like, I don't know, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Monty Royal here, giving you straight dope. I'm not cutting it down. I'm not putting fucking iguana food in it. There's no baking soda in this dope. This is pure dope, boys. Make sure to enjoy it. Spread it around. Tell everyone. That's a pretty good truth, though. It's like, yeah, no one wants to talk about the molestation at home, so that means no one's allowed to talk about the government molesting y'all either. Damn, that's a pretty good truth. I think that's a little closer to the truth than anyone likes to admit. I'm going to have to make a short out of that one. All right, let's get back to the program. Oh.
To life with a lack of
Sorry, I hate pausing it like this because I brought up, there's a good comment here. Somebody says gun education isn't taught anymore. Back then, people were taught the importance. No. Back then, people were taught the importance of life because religion played such a massive role in society.
Nah,
and
that's
it no
bullshit.
longer exists.
That's bullshit. Because people were still baby raping in Vietnam back then. The Vietnam vets, they would rape babies in Vietnam, and they'd break the pelvis of the baby, and they'd call it wishboning. Yeah, it's very disturbing. The Night Stalker, the original Night Stalker in LA or San Francisco, California, his name was Richard Ramirez. His uncle was a Green Beret vet in Vietnam, and he had the Green Beret vet, his uncle, had a box of Polaroid pictures of all the women. He took a Polaroid camera and he would torture and rape women and children in Vietnam. And this was a Green Beret, and and so he would take pictures of what he would do to these women and children. And Richard Ramirez, from what I've heard, Richard Ramirez would take that box, the Night Stalker, his nephew, would take that box of Polaroids to a graveyard and masturbate. That just brings in the satanic, sexual, military connection to all this. But yeah, back then religion was bigger, but people weren't any better back then. People were actually a lot worse back then. Guys, I have my ex-girlfriend, she was older than me. She said back in the 70s, late 70s, she was staying with a friend when she was probably about 10 years old. Her and her friend were at home, and the mom left to go drinking at a club, and it was just two 10-year-old little girls at home. And my ex-girlfriend said that a guy walked up to the window, tried to roll up the window, and my girlfriend, she said she remembered where the gun was, and she was able to pull the gun on the guy, and the guy ran away. But yeah, just like that, simple stuff like that. Back in the days, people were getting molested, people were getting beaten up. Back in Kentucky and Letcher County, there's sundown towns back then. That was signs on the neighborhoods that said black people better not be caught here at sundown. The good old days were not as good as they're making it out to be. Things are better. Back then, I'm telling you guys, made a video last night in the 90s. Things were terrible as well. The climate was awful, and that was because Gulf War, Vietnam, and Korean War vets. Those guys were all fucked up in the head. They had PTSD. They had satanic rituals ingrained into their souls from all the nasty shit they did to the innocent people over in different countries. And then they come back and they get to be fathers, and they get to be teachers, and they get to be leaders of our community when they're really just perverts and fucking villains, and then they come back and they start molesting their kids and stuff. The culture is rooted with molestation. Most of your mothers have been molested, all right? 99% of your mothers have been molested. A bunch of fathers have been molested too. And they're not going to be talking about it. They're not doing shit about it. So when you go to your parents after you've been molested too, and you tell them, hey, my friend's dad molested me, they'll just laugh about it. And they'll tell you, hey, you're a man now. That's what you get with these fucking leaders.
Religion has been replaced with political dogma. That's the reason. Almost every single one of these people also are not very religious. Religion isn't necessary. I think it is. I think Karl Marx was right. Religion is the opiate of the people.
Fuck religion. God doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. I said it again. God does not exist.
True. I do. Again, keep in mind, I have the worst possible view of humanity that you can have. So,
You know, the concepts in religion, most religions are based off of sex cults because it's always been numbers game. You got to have the people to have the power. Like back in the day, you know, if your neighbor was giving you shit, it was all about how many cousins each one of y'all could, you know, band together to go fuck each other up, and whoever had the more people could, you know, win. And that's the same concept with populations. So the Bible says, be fruitful and multiply. That's a psychological warfare tactic. Hey, yeah, that means, hey, Christians, go have more kids. Right now, we need you to have kids. And then when it's time to not have kids, then they use the government policy to... I'm telling you guys, we've been psychologically manipulated since at least Jesus's day. Before that, the Bible is just psychological manipulation. I don't get me wrong, there are good things in the Bible, but most of it's just sex cult and ritualistic shit that we don't understand, and that wasn't even translated properly yet, you know, because like back in the day, back in the 70s and 60s, Catholics would go to Latin masses and they couldn't even understand what the goddamn priest was saying. And they went their whole lives, these just regular people that spoke English, would go to Latin masses just to be around. We don't know what, you know, Lady Babylon is getting close to, he's a YouTuber. I think he's not 100% correct, but he's getting a lot closer to the translating the original Greek writings of the Bible. And pretty much what he's saying was sex rituals, drug use, and all kinds of shit that they don't want to admit to were going on back then and are the foundation for our religions. And so what I'm saying is, people don't need religions. You just need the golden rule. Do unto others as you would do to yourself, you know?
maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think.
Financial literacy. They don't know anything about money or the growth of money. All they know is the absence of money.
I think we need to have in our curriculums in high school a class on adulting. My kid, I see it in my house. My kid can do integers and basic calculus, but he doesn't understand the interest on his credit card.
That's bad. That's really bad. How?
Dude, no one understands this interest bullshit. And that's because they don't teach it, because they want to take advantage of us. Obviously, it's a system where the Old Testament tells its followers to take advantage of those that are weaker. When they're in weak positions, you strike. And that's exactly what they're doing. I'm not saying Jews, but Zionist, whatever fucking going on. That's what's happening to us, is we're being taken advantage of. Pretty much, religions say, we think that religion is ethical, when really some religions say, yeah, smite your opponent when they're the weakest. You know, lie and take advantage of your opponent in order to overcome them. Or, you know, that's what's kind of in the Bible.
Bad. Yeah, kids won't listen anyway.
And you know what's even more fucked up is this whole Greater Israel bullshit. The whole United States spending money and weapons to Israel, and they're using the Bible to justify it. Politicians are using the Bible to justify the invasion of Iraq, or, you know, of Syria and you know, Palestine, and for Greater Israel, which is absolutely crazy. And guys, I'm saying, Monty Royal here, we need to nationalize the wealth of the 1%. We need to redistribute the wealth from the top 1% to everyone else. It's the only way we're going to survive. I'm the only guy that's going to be talking about this. And, you know on my conscience, I can look back fucking 20 years and be like, yeah, I was trying to tell people what needs to be done, but people are just fucking arrogant and stupid, and they didn't want to do anything because they're so used to doing the same shit that they do the day before, because they're so used to the same shitty results that they get day after day. And So I'm saying, you know what, we need to change it up a little bit, churn up the system, and, take the money from the top 1% and give it back to the rest of the people in the form of healthcare, uh, infrastructure, uh, debt jubilee as well.
Well, here's another problem, is that because parents don't have a lot of money, how many of you guys learned how to budget money really well because your parents gave you an allowance?
I don't
And like, for
know.
example, I would get like 20, 30 bucks a week.
Never.
And then I had to spend some of that on school. Like I had to buy school lunch with that money. And then anything I had left over was my money that I could spend the way that I wanted. And that teaches kids how to spend money and how to allocate money per week. Yeah, a week. $30 a week, you're rich. Yeah, I forgot if it was like $20 or $30. My mom might have upped it to 30. I really don't remember.
Well, lunch is $2 a meal.
They didn't
Then
get shit. Yeah, but for a lot of you
5
guys
days
that
a
did,
week.
do you think that getting an allowance and being able to budget out that money in the way that you chose to helped you better, like, with
Dude,
financial?
no one talked to me about budgeting until I was well out of high school on my own. It just, I don't know what
Matters?
this. Yeah.
Because
no one
for
talked to me about that shit.
I feel like it was very helpful. That's not what he's talking about? No, he is. Because, like, you understand, like, people don't understand the importance of money who don't have the ability to use it a lot. The problem is that kids make bad mistakes with money in a space that's safe. Like, you can make a stupid mistake with money at age 11, at age 14. But whenever you make a stupid mistake with money at age 19 and you take out a 21% interest loan on a Dodge Challenger and you don't have a job, well, that's a really big mistake.
How the hell are
That's
you getting a
way
loan
bigger
without a
mistake
job?
than buying the wrong video game at GameStop. And so at a certain point, having kids, it's kind of like a, like natural immunity or something like that, building up a tolerance to it. So if kids aren't able to make mistakes as kids, then they're going to make those mistakes as adults instead.
So there's just some basic
that
kind of
Hellcat?
financial literacy
Yeah.
that we're not teaching. And when you start replacing civics with computer science, you lose a sense of the country and you start learning about programming. And when you don't talk about
He's
basic
right.
financial literacy or even mating, I would like to see in the senior year of college mating dynamics and help men understand and women.
That's the point. That's the point. They got to get us as far away from nature as possible because what we're doing is unnatural. If we go back to nature, everything kind of settles up right. But we're on this path of unnatural synthetic environment. That's the reason the money is a big reason too. It's the fiat currency the United States has. We get pretty much money out of nothing, and we can pretty much live and fund Social Security, and so people can literally do nothing and get paid for it. I mean, other countries have pensions as well, and I'm not knocking Social Security, but I'm saying there's got to be a better way, And like I'm saying, the Vatican has more money, more than enough money to be able to feed and clothe and shelter the world's population over again. Unfortunately, the Vatican might be a criminal syndicate, a global criminal syndicate, and we have to consider that fact. So unless the Catholic Church wants to put their money where their mouth is, I think they should be tried as prisoners, or we should wage war on the Catholic Church as well, an enemy of the state, the Catholic religion. Yeah, that will go over well. I hope I'm pissing someone off out there.
Vulnerabilities of social media. I was talking about the challenges of men from social media. At exactly the wrong time in a young girl's life, she is presented with a valuation where she never gets to leave the high school cafeteria 24/7. And as my colleague Jonathan Hyde has pointed out, we've seen a dramatic uptick in suicide. But I think effectively we just don't have basic skills for young people. We're teaching them advanced things, but we're not teaching them the basics around what a mortgage.
Yeah, I completely agree. Kids don't need to learn Algebra 2. It's a waste of time. Nobody cares. They don't need to learn about English literature in senior year. they should definitely learn. And it's not that this stuff doesn't matter at all. It's that other things matter more. And if you have a limited amount of time,
Right.
it is a bad decision
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
put this above the other thing. Like Algebra 2 is very important, but it's not more important than financial accounting.
It just shows you where the
It's
value
not
is
just-
placed.
well, I mean, not maybe it's not something like that, right? But more about taxes and the costs. Yeah, exactly. Why is math always to blame? Because most people don't use math. Realistically, you're probably like I'll tell you, how many times have I needed to calculate the hypotenuse of a square like this? Like calculate the long one. I'll tell you the amount of times. 0. 0 times. I never had to do it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I remember how to do it, but a lot of people probably don't. And so if you're teaching people something that 95% of them, 90% of them, 80% of them are never going to use, why are you teaching this to them? Because it goes against fundamentally the way that people learn. People learn and retain information by regularly going back to that information. Like how many of you guys, for example, had a locker in school and you forgot the password on your locker between like semesters or between summer break and the next year? Because you're not using it. So if you teach people skills that they're not going to use, they're just going to forget the skills, and it will be as like you never taught them at all.
Just cramming
You see what I'm
shit into
saying?
people's heads.
Like that's just not the way learning works. Always use the same password. Yeah, password 1. There you go.
What interest rates mean. So I think we could use just a basic class on adulting, junior or senior year.
That's bullshit.
MSNBC has a
That's a bullshit. Just a class on adulting. That's not what it takes.
new and improved app. You'll get
Jesus.
real-time alert. Best.
Totally wrong.
Type in or the
One of the things that I really like with guys like this is because they say it in such a matter-of-fact way, and it's like people like this have a really good ability to cut through the bullshit. Like the romantic comedies are 2 hours and not 15 minutes. That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. And it's just raw. Hypotenuse is long side of the triangle. It doesn't matter though. That's the point that I'm making. Is that like I got a 99 in geometry. I understood that extremely, extremely well. But a lot of it I've probably forgotten by now because I don't use the information. That's the reason why. And that's what happens with anything, liar. No, I actually did. Like, is it really that hard to imagine? Yeah. And so, and you're limited because of it? No, I'm not. And that's the point that I'm making, is that whenever you teach kids to learn something that they won't use, you're effectively wasting their time.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the reason why. You're
Public
wasting
school
your
is
time.
mandated
And I
too.
think also-
So maybe the government should be we should do a class action lawsuit on them and be liable for all the time they fucking wasted of ours.
So like these things they're good to know. It's not like it's bad to know this.
They literally take you off. Back in the days, kids that were able to work in farms or factories at least, but now they force you to go do 12 years of, you can learn all that stuff in probably like 6 years, but they make you do 12 years of just grinding out and shit and wasting your time. And and those are some of the most productive years of your life. That if you were working on a farm or if you were working in a factory, you could probably be the most productive that you were, because kids just have more energy and they're able to move around a lot easier and stuff.
But again, you live in a world of scarcity. Everything in life is scarce. It's not like you can just have, we'll just teach everybody everything. You don't have time for that. So you have to decide, what are you going to teach people? Is it more important to teach them Pythagorean theorem or how interest rates work?
in my opinion, I think interest rates went out 10x, 100x more.
Yeah.
So it's not that
Makes sense.
Pythagorean theorem doesn't matter. It's that other things matter more. Why can't we have both? Because you only have so much time. That's why. So you only have so much time that you have kids in school for. That's the reason. It's very simple. Yeah, they can only do so many classes. They're only going to learn so many things, and that's it. Math is teaching kids how to think.
Time and
yeah,
energy.
but why wouldn't it be better to teach kids how to think in ways that are more practical to their real life? That's the worst argument I've ever heard. Like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. Math should teach kids how to live? Yeah, exactly. It's about brain development? Okay, so you're telling me that like brain development only happens whenever you learn Pythagorean theorem, but if you learn accounting, they can't develop their brain? That's the most dumb fuck thing I've ever heard. No, that's not the way it works. Dumb fucking thing. It's so fucking stupid. Where do these chatters come from? I don't know. Yeah. I'm actually confused on something here. Did you guys not get algebraic functions and interest rates in grade 8 math? I mean, like, back in the day, I like, as I said, like, I grew up, like, my dad was into business, and so, like, I knew all of this stuff. This was never an issue for me. But I know a lot of my friends don't know it. How do I know they don't know it? Because I've seen their credit card bills.
I don't know shit
Yeah,
about it.
that's how I know.
Yeah, his friends. Yeah.
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of a cell. Yeah, biology doesn't matter. Periodic table, this stuff, complete bullshit. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be relevant to like 90%, 80% of people's lives. Yeah, focus on something else. And again, like, I'm not saying that you should not do it, but you shouldn't make it required. You shouldn't do it instead of something else. I had this argument with a friend who has a PhD in physics. He told me that anything he learned was useless, but the exercises learn him to resolve the problems. I think that you're right, and I actually like the idea of math as a foundation of logic, and I think that's extremely true. But I also don't think that's the way that most people think. The truth is that most people are really not logical thinkers, and they never will be. How do I know that? Because I read Twitter. You're not going to teach somebody to think like that. Which is not what's going to happen. It's better to teach them how to do accounting, and that way they can not fuck up their life. Biology matters in terms of not being a moron with ridiculous beliefs, making social decisions based on their misunderstanding of biology. Okay, let me immediately prove you wrong. Biology is a required course in America, and half of the country thought COVID was fake. It didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work. So they think global warming is fake. There's no climate change. The earth is flat. I'm sorry. I wish more people would, if you guys are going to type an argument into chat, please think about what somebody would say to your argument. At least think one step ahead. That's all I'm asking. And then if you think one step ahead of that argument, and then you think, and then you're like, oh, wait a second. This is a bad idea. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I think that's a stupid idea too. Just like, yeah, it's just an incentive just not to get people to speak their opinion, you know, because one man's voice could pretty much inspire another guy, then one guy inspires another guy, and then once that message hits the guy that can inspire, you know, a whole world, then that's a problem. So they want to, this guy's philosophy right now is kind of the problem with our society is instead of, you know, because if you tell someone that their comments are stupid or the questions are stupid, you know, that's because your inability to, because the answer is an ability to work with that question and, you know, but yeah, just to, you know, people say some, like what I'm saying, nationalize the rich people's money, you know, nationalize the 1% and redistribute it. People think that's crazy, but you know what? If shit's wrong and shit started off wrong 400, 500 years ago, there's no reason that it shouldn't be fixed, you know? So if issues happen a long time ago, like people getting raped 20 years ago and just starting a lawsuit about it now, there's nothing wrong with that, you know? It's just like, just because time has passed by doesn't mean that the damage hasn't been done, you know? Statute of limitations are just there in order to protect criminals and to protect perpetrators. Psychological issues become deep and ingrained and, could lead to the detriment of someone else. Now, is that their fault? You know, you can argue that, the person, how they manage the issue, that's, on them. But that's also bullshit, because I think that, the perpetrator of the crimes is ultimately responsible for altering a person's brain. And that is an indelible process which can't be fixed, which those indelible processes should have a financial compensation for it. So in a greater way, the society's this torture that's done on us, with our violent, drug addicted communities, legally there are people that should be held accountable for it, but because of statute of limitations and because of corruption, a lot of people aren't being dealt with effectively.
Just playing checkers, not chess. Yeah, try to play a little bit more chess and less checkers. Exactly.
I'm a checkers player.
I made a spiked eggnog ice cream with the
But
Ninja
fuck
Creamy
it, dude.
Deluxe
There's a lot more
and
checkers players out there than chess players.
it's the perfect holiday flavor.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So, just depends on you guys what you want. I'm saying nationalize the 1%'s wealth and redistribute the wealth to everyone else. That's the way to do it. That's the only hope we have for our society. Everyone's looking for a high knowledge answer, an intellectual answer. Sometimes a caveman answer is the best.